So I have an idea, planning a trial where the PCs are defending an NPC. One of the primary witnesses is possessed by a shadow demon. I was thinking about introducing something where demons can't say the names of good aligned gods as a way for the PCs to get some idea that the person is possessed, dropping it as some background information and having the demon only refer to the good god the NPC on trial worships by other names. That could work. So if you want to clue to something, or if you want to clue somebody into something, generally speaking, you want a few different clues. Do you have any other ideas on top of that? Because I think that's a good one, but I'd be I would be hesitant about that being like the clue, because if people don't make that jump to possession, I don't know, like how else can they figure that out? Let's say an assassin was the last person to use this room at the inn, and we want the players to be able to figure it out. First, we put a tricky lockbox under the bed, with a disguise and a lot of gold inside. There are also small scratches on the floor where it was pulled out. Next, the assassin stored their poison components in the drawer, leaving tiny pieces behind. The lingering smell will deal 1 point of damage to any player that takes a big whiff. Their contract was written in invisible ink, so a blank parchment sits on the table next to melted blue candle wax. Okay, gotcha. I was just asking to make sure that that's what you were asking about. Okay. Clues about possession. How about they ask to excuse themselves a couple of times, right? Because like they might even appear to be sick. Because possession means that somebody's probably fighting back. So maybe they get through some of it and they go, actually, can I have a break? And then they have a break that gives the players, maybe some of the players would be like, hey, let's go spy on them. That gives them a chance to spy on them, in which case they can see them either like maybe arguing with themselves or, perhaps like doing something else, the resisting being expelled. I would have maybe just a mention of like a temperature change. Not like an immediate tie-in. Like they come in and they sit down. I'm imagining like a courtroom setting, but obviously it's in your world it could be anything else. But I imagine you list off all the people that are there, and then they come in and sit down, and you mention some other things, and you go, by the way, you feel that the temperature, like have them come in with 2 or 3 people, right? They're not the only ones that come in and sit down, but after being there for a moment, you feel like a chill and like you get goosebumps, and you're not exactly sure where the source is. And they'll be like, can I do perception check? And you'll be like, yeah, you do. And they're like, oh, I got like 28 perception. And you're like, yeah, it seems to just like the air temperature change. You're not exactly sure why. Like it's not a thing that they can necessarily perceive. It did seem to happen though, right when these 3 people walked in. That's odd, right? I think especially during any sort of like swearing in, any sort of promise to tell the truth, or even if they're using like a spell to determine that, there could be some sort of I'm trying to imagine like a reaction that is masked by something otherwise like mundane. Like perhaps like they're being asked that and they start like, coughing a lot. Just something that's sort of masking their sort of natural reaction to it, but obviously they're going to want to hide that. They should probably seem pretty nervous in general, but not nervous in an obvious way that they're talking. I'm thinking nervous in that like they seem actually super calm and collected, but you're like, they're very clearly sweating. Like otherwise, like the stuff that they're saying is like, yeah, but that alone, like actually they're sweating. It looks like it's coming through their shirt. They're sweating so much. Like those, I feel like a combination of all those things, people be like, there's something wrong with this person. Like that gives them a chance to pick up on it. And you can always like kind of order these clues and how you reveal them. Like you can drop them based on whether you read, like obviously if the party's catching on, maybe you don't need to drop so many clues. Maybe you let them work off of the hunch they get, right? Skin color changing over time or profusely sweating. Yeah. Totally. Yep. That would be great. What else can a you said it was a shadow demon? What else can a shadow demon like potentially do, right? Maybe if the questioning is starting to make them look bad, can like there be like a partial eclipse or something like that that just so happens to happen while they're like and everybody screams and like looks out the window and like there's a bit of chaos and that buys them some time. That may be like if they still aren't getting it type of clue where it's like, oh, okay, let me now this is going to happen. If they don't get this, then okay, they just don't find this out and they will kick themselves later when they find out what was up.
Introduce your villains early and make sure players understand the threat they pose. Try things other than direct confrontation, or else your players might take out your villains too soon. For instance, you could use necromancy. Have your villain speak through the mouths of the dead to provoke the party. Every enemy they defeat is another chance for a villainous monologue. Or try imposters. Your players fight the villain, but each time they discover it's just another henchman disguised as the big bad.
Maybe we need to work some of that into an adventure sometime. I've never been super crazy about how possession stuff works in D&D, like with the monsters as they're written. So I've always done a little bit more work on that stuff. I think there's a lot of room to play with that. True, yeah. There's a lot of different takes they could have on it. Yeah, and that would be the goal, right? Is there need to be multiple reasonable explanations. That way somebody can feel like a genius.